Hi everyone, I'm Miss Sammy and I work at the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Green Bay. This week we're going to be doing our Health and Life Skills project, which is combining our theme of space with a life skill that everybody should at some point learn how to do, which is sewing. So we are going to learn how to do Constellation sewing cards. This is what our finished product will look like. The materials we will need for this project are an index card, a marker or something to write with, some yarn, and a yarn needle, or if you don't have one of those laying around your house, you can also use a toothpick. So the next thing you'll need to do is select a constellation that you would like to learn about. I picked Orion, the hunter, because it's one of the most popular, well-known constellations, and fun fact, you can actually see it in the sky tonight in the Green Bay area, so take a look out there tonight and see if you can find him. Our first step is to draw our constellation out on our index card. So for Orion's, I have a reference down below this. If you look at the sewing constellation cards, you can download it onto your computer and you can print it, or if you don't have a printer like me, I just kind of eyeballed it. I actually held up my index card to the computer and just eyeballed it. So then you should have something like this. And I also put the lines in between here just to make sure I don't get confused while I'm stitching. So I go from one spot to go from this star to this star. I want to make sure I know I'm going in the right direction so that when I'm all done, my shape actually looks like the constellation that it should look like. Our next step is to start stitching the constellation. So if you're going to be using the toothpick needle, tie your yarn towards the bottom of the toothpick. And then I even use the scissors to put a divot on each side so that way the yarn stays tight a little bit better. And if you are using the toothpick, you might want to pre-punch your holes in your Orion constellation. That way it's a little bit easier to push the toothpick through. That way you don't risk breaking it. So the first thing we need to do with our yarn is to tie a knot at one end. So I already have one in here, but I'm going to double knot it. That way it really won't go through the paper when I do my first stitch. Okay, so we got our double knot on the end. And I'm going to start with the bottom. So you can start at any point you would like to start at. There's really no wrong way to do it. But I'm going to start at the bottom right here. And I start underneath the constellation and go up, so our first one will show up top. And then I'm going to punch down through it. See? So there's our first stitch. And then you want to make it come back up. And then through the star. Oops. Okay, I got my needle rethreaded. So now what you're going to do is you just keep going back and forth, up and down through the paper, just on the lines of the constellation, that the dash line, so that way you're going in the right direction. And then don't pull it too tight because then it might rip through the paper. You have to be gentle and careful. Then I'm going to go through the star. And if I were to go through the next star right now, you wouldn't get to see it because it would show up on the back instead of the front. See, there'll be a line right here instead of right here. So we have to come back through closer to this spot. And then we can go through our next star. So that way there's a gap, a smaller gap, and it's not just a blank spot this whole way. See, there's only a little blank gap now. So we're going to do the same thing with this one. So push it through right next to the star we just went through. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Through the back to the front. And now we can punch it in our next star. So we just keep continuing with this process until we get all the way around. Alright, and once we've made it almost all the way around, we just have a couple more stitches left. We are then going to tie the beginning yarn together with the end of this yarn. So this is where we started, and I had double knotted it in the beginning. Now you just tie it like so. And then if you have a scissors, you can cut that extra piece off. And there you have Orion. Make sure you guys are researching whatever constellation you pick out, because that's half the fun. I ended up picking Orion because he actually has two dogs. They're called Canis Major and Canis Minor, and he takes them to hunt celestial animals that also live in the sky, like Taurus the bull. And I also was reading about some of the myths about Orion, and there's one that says that he died because he stepped on Scorpion, and the gods felt sorry for him, so they put Scorpion in one half of the sky and Orion in the other. That way they would never be up in the sky at the same time. So there's all sorts of interesting mythology surrounding these cool constellations, so be sure to look at those too. Be sure to share your finished constellations with us. I would love to see what you guys are working on. I miss you all very much. I hope you're staying home and being safe. I can't wait to see you guys again. Hang in there, and I'll see you next week with our next project.